We have Austin in here today from New York Prime Beef.
Hey.
Gonna talk about some meats. Take us to meat school.
Hi, everybody. I work for a company called Vista Food Exchange, and we are a national trading company that specializes in the sourcing, sale, and distribution of perishable commodities.
Hey.
In layman's terms, what do you mean?
We buy and sell trailer loads of commodity product,
Meat, which is meat.
which is not appropriate for restaurants because nobody wants 40,000 pounds of chicken drumsticks in their cooler.
Shit.
Depends on your operation, but maybe you do.
How much does Candlelight go
40,000
through
pounds.
Super Bowl?
I don't know.
To
I
put
thought
it
we
in
knew.
perspective, a case of chicken is 40 pounds.
Right. So
Okay.
1,000.
Yeah, it's a lot of chickens.
It's a lot of chicken.
Okay, so they buy and sell perishable commodities, and that's not just chicken. That could be milk, eggs.
Primarily protein.
Okay, so meat for the most part.
Correct.
So New York Prime Beef is
New York Prime Beef is our flagship retail brand, and that is custom cut to order dry aged prime beef that you can contact us and we'll cut any steak you want out of our dry age inventory and ship it to anywhere you want in the U.S. Fresh, not frozen, priority overnight via FedEx.
you said aged.
Dry aged.
Now we see this all the time out in restaurants. This dry aged piece of meat costs way more than all these other pieces of meats. Like, what makes a dry aged piece of meat so much better?
So first off, I'll answer your questions in that order. Okay. So first off, what is dry aged meat? So dry aged meat is when we're taking a sub-primal. So that could be varying cuts of the primal rib. So a 109 is a standard rib roast, for example, or a standing rib roast rather. And that is something that we'll put into a commercial dry aging room, and we will let that age for an extended period of time. Most people tend to gravitate towards a 28 to 30-day age. I like funk, so I would rather have double that. There's three main variables that you control when you dry age, and that is temperature, airflow, and humidity. And that's where people can manipulate those variables to create a flavor profile that's unique to their product and their room. The reason why it's so expensive is because you're not going to put garbage into that room. So we only will put, for our flagship brand, Prime Beef, USDA certified prime, that we will then dry age. Now, as a result of that, when it's dry aging, you are allowing water content to leave that subprimal. So as a result of that, it's shrinking down. So if you put a 25-pound piece of meat in there, it's not going to leave that room 25 pounds. So once you trim off all that age, which is inedible and not palatable, and it'll be extremely bitter and not able to be chewed, you're again dwindling that weight down. So that cost goes up. That's your loss, your yield loss. That's why it's more expensive. And your third question, I cannot remember what it was.
That actually makes a lot of sense, I guess, then too. But is in that aging process, is it essentially just, I guess, molding to the outside of the meat, and that's what's getting sliced off?
So good bacterial growth is positive because it's allowing enzymes to break down the muscle of the meat, which allows it to be more tender. Which again, by taking that water content out, you're also enhancing the tenderness of that product and flavor profile. So it's a stronger, more pronounced flavor than a standard fresh piece of meat.
So too, you say...
Oh, and that was what your last question was. Sorry to interject. You asked, why do people like it? Not everybody does like it. It's an acquired taste. People that like the funk love it. People that don't love the funk would rather have a fresh piece of meat. So eating is a primal experience. It's visceral. It's also binary. You either love something or you don't. I mean, when you go out to eat, you're not going to a restaurant to say, I hope I like this. That's probably not why you're going out to eat. You're going out because you know there's something that is interesting to you on the menu, and that's why you're going to go order it for wherever you decide to dine. So at the end of the day, like you go out of your way to eat the things that you like. So
that funk though that you referenced a few times though, like how do you explain that funk? What is that funk?
I think it's probably kind of hard to explain
I'll
unless
let the
you've
chef,
actually tasted it. But when you get something that's really, really dry aged, like the 90 to 100 day things, it can be a little bit like, not even a little bit, it is kind of funky, like what he said. Like sometimes people compare it to like blue cheese or something like really pungent like that.
So if you get like a what's the word I'm looking for? Like a washed rind French cheese that's really strong, and you let that sit for a while, it gets almost ammoniated. Like that really pungent intense flavor profile. Like you can achieve that with beef as well. Sometimes you can achieve that just by letting it age for an extremely long period of time, and then other times if you were to decrease airflow or just stack meat closer together so there's less airflow around those subprimals, you will probably achieve that funkier flavor profile in a shorter period of time.
Hence 28 days. Is that what's happening then? When
Well, I don't think they're letting it get that funky at 28 days, right?
No, 28 to 30. The only way that I could conceivably get something to taste that funky in 30 days is if I could let something wet age in advance, and then I could put it in the dry aging room. But then if you do that incorrectly, then you've ruined that piece of meat.
There's so many crazy key terms, my head's gonna explode. Wet aging is
Wet aging is where you cryovac a subprimal bone in.
cryovac. Is
Cryovac.
Cryovac is when you seal something in a vacuum sealed bag.
Airtight.
Okay,
Airtight. And you allow it to sit in its juices and age.
gotcha.
Yeah.
But I feel like there's probably a lot more chance for maybe not good bacterial growth when you do it that way.
Yeah, because then again, back to where are you getting the meat from? So if you have meat that's already sitting in juices for a while and it's purging in the bag is a term, which I know you're familiar with that. You run the risk of that meat potentially getting sour. Some people would classify that flavor profile as very mineral, almost metallic.
Okay.
And I personally think that I more often than not always enjoy dry age. The wet age is hit or miss for me.
Now and you were saying that to achieve something here being dry aged, you are essentially controlling the temperature, the airflow, and the
moisture.
humidity
Correct.
of an area. So any one of these variable changes can create a whole different end product result.
100%.
Is there like a specific formula that you kind of go to every time for the most part, where you're like, this yields the best result in our opinion?
So I would say that we have a formula that we implement. So it would be proprietary to us, as would anybody else's dry age room be proprietary to them.
Sure.
So what he's saying is these are business secrets that he's not going to reveal.
But basically it's all about getting something that works for you. At the end of the day, like if your customers are pleased with more of a clean flavor profile, something that's not as blue cheesy, then if your customers are happy, don't go changing it. That's something it's trial and error at the end of the day.
So would adding more humidity and making less airflow make something kind of seem more funky?
You'd run the risk of having intense bacterial growth at a faster rate, which could cause your meat to spoil.
Okay, so there's
Fast.
crazy variables in there, and any single one of those, the
Yeah.
changes will
No.
be completely different.
Exactly. So, and to be clear, there's a big. So Anum, if he had his dry aging room at a restaurant, he would be able to take a lot more liberties with how he's aging product and what methods he's implementing to do that. Whereas what we are utilizing is a formula that is not only appropriate for our end product, but it's also something that adheres to our HACCP plan and our SQF and being a USDA facility. So there's certain things that we are not allowed to do that a restaurant could do. So for example, being able to place subprimals on wood blocks. Okay, some people claim that they achieve a better flavor profile when they use wood in their dry aging room. We legally can't do that in our facility. So that's a very specific example, but an example nonetheless of there are certain factors that we can have fun and play with, and there's others that we can't, just as a result of being a USDA facility. So another one would be, what's the restaurant? Beatrice Inn. So she does her whiskey aged steak. So like that's something I can't do at the moment, just due to our HACCP plan and being a USDA facility. So that's something that a chef can have a blast with and create a really, really unique product that is very specific to their restaurant, to their menu, and their cooking application.
So whiskey aged.
Have you tried that, by the way?
I have not had the opportunity.
Is that
I
back
have
to-
had the opportunity to eat some snacks and drink at that establishment, and I had an excellent time.
Yeah.
What does whiskey age mean?
Is that back to the
Beatrice
cryovac?
Inn, Chef Angie Marr, she does a whole lot of like spirit aged meats, and so she'll wrap them in a cloth soaked with whiskey and just age it. Like that.
Cheesecloth.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she is cool.
So
we should get her on there.
are people able to take meats from you and then continue the aging process on their own?
Technically, they could.
So it's not like a
It's
once
not like
it's
it's
aged.
over. Like it's you age it and then it's finished.
Yeah. So hypothetically, if a Noom needed, 8 short loins, and he needed them aged to 30 days, and then he wanted us to deliver it to his restaurant, and then he wanted to continue the aging process in a specific way to him, by all means, we can do that.
It's not something guys are typically doing just because it
Um,
takes more time. Or,
Yeah, I mean the whole advantage to utilizing our services as a restaurant for food service is that you don't have to worry about having that storage space. Like I'm not saying you can't get some a decent aged product out of a walk-in cooler, but it's not the same thing. Just due to the fact that you can't manipulate your environment that is the best environment it can be for meat, because it's not going to be good for
Everything
your onion
else.
and your broccoli and your tomatoes and all that stuff.
And you also don't have to wait.
And you don't have to wait. We wait for you.
So, all right. So dry aged isn't the only product that you have as far as New York Prime Beef goes.
Correct.
And
Yeah, in fact, when we met Austin, he just walked into the bar with a bunch of sausages.
Yeah. He didn't even tell us who he was. He just walked in and he was like, hey, can I speak to the chef? And I got out there and he was like, hey, taste my sausages. Tell me what you think. And I was like, all right, guy, it's Friday night and I'm kind of busy right now, so I guess I'll talk to you later.
you went and cooked these sausages up at that point?
Yeah,
or did you throw them in the
eventually
fridge?
we did. We just threw them in the fridge and continued with Friday night service. But eventually we cooked them up and we tasted them. And then he came back and we told him what we
I
thought.
politely pestered Anoom.
On a Friday night.
He
Ballsy.
made the mistake of giving me his cell phone. So I'm like, did you eat yet? Did you eat yet? Did you eat yet?
But see, so what I was asking him before was that actually part of the long con where you're like, I'm going to get this guy's attention by giving him some free food. I think one of the things you gave me was like a Wagyu truffle bratwurst or something like that. And I was like, oh, yeah, okay, that's cool. I guess I'll talk to you now.
Yeah, that was an interesting experiment.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, like when I backstory, like I learned how to make sausage with my grandfather. So like every Easter, our entire family would get together and make kibasi. So that I was my grandfather's taste tester, if you will, because I wouldn't get out of the kitchen unless people gave me food. So that was his way to keep me moving, give me samples. So I fell in love making that and learning how to do that. So once I got into the meat business, I just thought, nobody's really tried to make Wagyu sausage. I'll give that a go. And that was kind of a rude awakening as far as experiments are concerned, because working with pork is and beef, two totally different animals, no pun intended. And it's definitely a different product overall, because you have to manipulate that lean to fat content in a different way than you would with pork. So I think we did an experiment with a pure grind and then a grind partial emulsion. So we played around with it a lot. But to answer Anoom's question, and to go along with questions about selling and trying to get accounts as a salesperson, if everybody has a million people walking in saying, hey, I want to sell you some stuff, but not many people walk in with something random that they've never seen or eaten before and said, hey, I want your feedback on it. So I suppose you could call it the long con, but it has a negative connotation to it.
I should have known.
But, it was one of those things where who can give me better feedback than somebody that is around food, cooking it and eating it and experimenting themselves with their ingredients. I can't ask for a better guinea pig than that. So Anoom was one of my guinea pigs amongst others, and that feedback was invaluable. It was.
But then, I mean, not to make him sound so nefarious, he also did come in and just sit at the bar and eat our food, and then he decided that maybe we would be right for some of his products.
Perhaps
He probably judged us before we judged him.
Yeah.
I had a few libations as well, but yeah, that's to that point. You can't. I love food. I love eating it, so I don't feel appropriate trying to talk to somebody about the food that they make and trying to sell them on different protein products if I can't talk about the food they make. So at the end of the day, like some recipes are better with chicken breast than chicken thighs, but for me to come in and tell you should use this other product before I've even eaten the product you've created, and then who the hell am I and why are you even going to listen to me at all?
I feel like a lot more people need to adopt that attitude.
No, nobody does. No. Just be pushy and get kicked out and leave the door open for me.
Exactly.
I'm just kidding. But no, but I mean, that's
kind of kidding. He's
Well, I'm not I didn't grow up in the meat business at all. I just love eating food. Like that's why I got into this business at the end of the day. But when I initially got into this business, it was strictly as someone doing market research, evaluating center of the plate protein items for online meal delivery companies. Like that was my introduction into this business. That's how I got introduced to the company that I work for. So it was good for me to understand why people are picking certain protein items over others, because it forced me to recognize that I was only evaluating items based upon what I wanted to eat. And back to my comment about food eating, it's a primal experience. It's something that takes you back, so to speak. And if you don't like eating something, you're not going to return to that. So for me, there's certain things I love eating that other people do not enjoy eating, or certain types of food. Like I love eating spicy food. Other than cereal and ice cream, most of what I eat is extremely spicy. That's just how I like it. And but that's not for everybody.
They do have some spicy ice creams out now.
Yo,
You can get like
quick
a hot
question: Have you been
chocolate.
to Ugly Baby?
No, but that name makes me want to go.
It's I believe it's a Thai restaurant, but a lot of my coworkers have gone and they said it's some of the spiciest food they've ever eaten. A lot of people who I know to eat spicy food said they can't finish what they
Yeah,
get.
I never.
Then
I never
I
had
need to
Thai
go.
food.
Is it?
Yeah.
Is it in Manhattan?
I believe it's in Brooklyn. You should look it up.
I just saw chocolate dipped ghost peppers somewhere.
That's disgusting.
That's
Yeah,
that's
too
a bad
much.
decision.
That's too
Yeah.
much.
Yeah.
I like spicy food too, but I'm not going anywhere near like eating a pepper.
I was
We
just
had
starting it up.
we had ghost peppers at
And
Neuro Show
remember
for a little
Eric
bit.
ate one?
Yep.
That was
You-
not a good. That wasn't a
That's
good.
not a good move.
You got to
Wasn't
build
a good
up.
move.
You got to build up that tolerance.
Yeah.
Like it's not. And I use that word specifically, tolerance, because like
Those are
Oh, I'll
painful.
they get
I'll
you.
sweat
Yeah.
but I can't stop. I'm like, I need to eat. I'm sweating. It's hurting. But I'm like, let me get some more.
I think a habanero is probably closest to like as hot as I would eat, like intentionally. You know, like I'm not trying to
So-
get too much hotter than
We
that.
were
Well,
ta-
that's the capsicum Chinese.
Yeah.
That's the family. I don't know, but regardless, like all of those, like the ghost pepper and the
California
Trinidad
Reaper.
scorpion and all those are all technically capsicum Chinese. So they're all branched off of that.
He's not just
Same.
meat.
Clearly.
Well,
peppers, too.
so I actually, I used to grow chili peppers back
There you
home.
go.
So
There
I'm, which back to the comment of store bought versus homegrown, very, very different. Like a legitimate, like a well grown jalapeno from somebody's garden will light you up, whereas a store bought one probably won't.
What are the differences between like a homegrown and a store bought? Why is one hotter?
What's with wine, the terroir? But I don't know. I think you don't rush it. Like when you're growing it at home, you're just doing it for fun. You're not picking anything early. So produce, like protein, anything else, it's a business. So if you're going to scale fast, you need to produce fast. Which is why if you have something that is all natural, organic, antibiotic free, no growth promotants, all those things that people claim, the educated consumer claims they want to eat, they don't always want to pay for it because it costs a lot more to raise that animal. Just like with produce, it's no different.
So talking about that, and you just said understanding why people eat or choose the proteins that they want to eat. Let's talk about different styles of meat. Like why do we want Wagyu?
Well, I mean, because it tastes better.
I mean, I
Not
know
everybody
this, but
does.
Really?
Yeah. Well, look, and a lot of people do enjoy eating it, but they don't. We eat with our eyes first and then our wallets.
Mm-hmm.
We're all guilty of that.
Well, wallets aside, let's talk about.
I think Wagyu's a lot different because it's obviously got an abundant amount of marbling, so it's going to lend itself to being more tender.
Before you get there, what is Wagyu?
It's just Japanese cattle, but now you have American Wagyu, so
Domestic
that's
Wagyu.
it's a genetically speaking, it's pulling from some of the same genetics that the original Japanese breeds are. So there's only I think there's only two breeds that you'll find here that are derived from what was in Japan, and one's the Japanese black and one's the Japanese brown. As far to my knowledge, the biggest Japanese brown herds are in Texas because those cattle do better in the extreme heat. So for the most part, most of the Japanese black herds are typically like Pacific Northwest, Midwest, and some as far north as places like Vermont. But those are, again, niche niche farms. They're not huge. Like Snake River, I don't know if anybody can compete with them on a marketing level. They're extremely consistent, but they charge for that. It's a premium product and it's got a premium price tag.
And if you're looking at, just Google Wagyu on Instagram. It's the insanely marbled pieces of meat.
And Snake River Farms, they're from the Midwest, yeah.
I think they do a lot in the Pacific Northwest.
Oh, okay.
So this is actually from Nebraska. So this is
Okay.
that's
So-
an example of it. So again, you see abundant marbling, right? So it's significantly more than prime. Now, not all producers are doing what's called a full blood animal. So they'll do a hybrid cross. So a lot of people are doing crosses between Black Angus and Japanese Black, for example.
So your Wagyu, is that domestic or is it imported?
We have both.
We have both.
Correct.
Okay. Gotcha. And when you're getting it from here, where is that really sourced from?
Mostly, I think most of the domestic Wagyu, like you're saying, is coming from like Snake River Farms. Otherwise,
Okay.
it's these small niche farms.
Gotcha.
Yeah, our brand, like the brands that we've purchased from, anywhere from Oregon, Washington, Nebraska.
So is Wagyu the top chain as far as meat prices go?
Depends
Like,
on where you're getting it from.
Like, what's really the most expensive cut of meat that we wind up seeing in restaurants for the most
always
part?
the tenderloin. Or no, I
Always.
shouldn't say that. I guess from a yield perspective, the tenderloin always ends up being expensive just because the loss is so significant.
Which is what you
we
were
were
saying a
talking
little bit earlier.
But yeah, it depends. I mean, availability can cause prices to drive up. I mean, it's years ago, like everybody wanted ground chuck for burgers, but now chuck rolls, when they're sliced thin for things like shabu shabu, they're fantastic. But that's where a lot of that product's going, or it's getting exported to Asian markets. So that cost gets driven up, and then therefore people like us necessarily won't even be able to acquire it. And if we do acquire it, it will not be at a price that was as favorable as it once was.
And that leads me into something too, and I don't know how correct this is, as I've learned through time that my grandmother has told me a couple fables. But she said that skirt steak once was like, it was not desirable. Like people weren't looking for that cut whatsoever. And she said it was cheap as hell. And now she looks at the prices and she goes, how is this in such demand? Why are the prices skyrocketed so much over time? And does that go back to just demand and trends? And
Exactly.
I think it's mostly demand and trends. Like lobster was one of those that was also always thought of as like a garbage cut, and then all of a sudden people love to eat lobster. But I mean, you could talk more about the skirt steak stuff.
A lot of it comes in the restaurant too. Is you look for gems where you can find
value.
a price that's lower and present it in a way that's desirable, because obviously that's
That's
better
like
for us.
educating your customers on a lesser known product that you can get for a good price
Yeah.
and transform it into something that people enjoy.
So what's the difference between like a skirt steak and a flat meat?
They're coming from different parts of the animal.
And considerably different price, but sort of similar in cut and texture?
No.
Not at all. Well,
Because skirt steak will still, it will be a steak. You can do that as a center of the plate protein item. Flat meat, you're not going to, like, the name alone, I challenge you to offer that to your customers.
it doesn't
Say,
sound sexy. I
Challenge
get it.
accepted. I'll
Those
do
are
it.
special flat meats. You know? I mean, and look, prepared right, it eats,
Flat meat special
it
next
eats,
weekend.
It eats incredibly well when it's done right. But like, there's a lot, and again, like, how are you cooking it? Like, the cooking application's a big thing. Like, I'm talking to barbecue guys right now. I love brisket. It's my favorite barbecue item on the planet. I will pick that over any rib, period. How do we do that? We spice rub it and we cook it low and slow for an extended period of time, and it comes out juicy and succulent, and it's the best. But you'll never find that with, an Asian market. You go to a Korean restaurant for Korean barbecue, they're going to do that paper thin, and it's going to be hot and fast is how they're going to cook it. So taking the same muscle, but they're going to cook it in an entirely different way. So some meats you can do that with, others not so much.
You speak a lot about Asian markets, and I know when I was at Smokehouse dealing with you, you'd oftentimes come in with like an advertisement, or not an advertisement, but talking about like a pork belly that you had fabricated for an Asian market. What is the actual difference between the way, I guess, our American markets and the Asian markets want their food, and like how do you deal with that? How do you deal with those differences?
So you're talking about the single rib belly where
Yeah.
they leave the finger meat attached. Yeah, I like that visually. That just excites me because it was different from the pork bellies I grew up eating. But it's extra meat on there. So again, like think about, an American eatery. Like people love St. Louis ribs, but if you are a fan of the pork belly, the St. Louis ribs are a waste to you. You'd rather keep that meat attached to the pork belly. So I guess generally speaking, that would be one way that it would be created like that. The pork belly, the reason why I was bringing that up to you, going back to when you were at Smokehouse, was because I was presented with that product from our Wagyu supplier, who will sell to the Japanese, Chinese, and Korean restaurants, and that was an item that he had that just ate exceptionally well. And it was different from the commodity pork belly.
Oh, it was very different from the commodity pork belly.
That's primarily why I was offering that, just to be different at the end of the day. Gotcha. And sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. And that's when it comes down to dollars and cents. So, if you really like it and it's different and you enjoy it, but it's $2 more a pound, you're gonna be like, no. Because if you can achieve the same result and save yourself the money at the end of the day, like that's the difference between profit and loss, right? So, and that's the side of the business that you and I both understand, but from two totally different perspectives.
Absolutely.
So, I think about yield loss when the meat's still raw.
We think about it after it's cooked.
Exactly,
for sure.
which is even more significant at times.
Can you put, and for somebody that openly, I know some things of meat, I apparently am an idiot, know nothing about meat. Can you put together
Don't let Justin make you feel bad.
No, it's not Justin. It's reality.
Oh no, I'm getting talked to later. I guarantee it. Can you put together like a soft list of maybe like what are the fattiest meats out there versus I guess what's more lean? Is that right? Like terminology there?
Well, are we talking about fat outside, fat on the exterior, or are we talking about intermuscular fat? Because those are.
Well, intermuscular is kind of what you want.
That's
for
the
the
marbling.
juices, right?
Yes.
That's the marbling. Okay. Is there?
So you're talking about like different cuts or different like types of protein?
Different cuts,
Of
right? Because
beef.
of the beef, yeah, totally. Of the beef are completely different. Say a porterhouse versus a New York strip, right? Porterhouse, you're getting a little bit of both,
Correct.
right?
But you're still getting a strip in there.
In the porterhouse. So
Yes.
So when you have your strip loin and the tenderloin connected,
By
and
that
it's
T-bone
still
in the
it's still
middle.
it's still attached to the bone and the
Correct.
vertebrae, like that's called a short loin. That's subprimal.
Okay.
So we'll buy that and we will dry age that, for example. But you could also buy just what are called 3x2 shells. So that's just the bone and strip loin, and then we can dry age that. But that won't come with the tenderloin attached.
Gotcha.
And in the short loin, it's not like you cut it from one end to the other and you get nothing but porterhouses. We probably get like two beautiful porterhouses, maybe two really nice T-bones, and the rest are all strip steaks. So back to your question of why certain things cost so much. Think about when you have a short loin, and then the packing house that's slaughtering all the animals has all these short loins, and then they have to cut the strip loin out and the tenderloin out. Like now all that bone that's being discarded is technically a loss. So that's why that boneless strip loin is going to cost a lot more on a price per pound than something that's bone-in.
Gotcha. Okay. And I mean, what is the more desirable cuts of beef at this point currently that you see going out?
Do you see what's happening? He has to go home and cook dinner tonight. So he's like, what should I cook for
Yeah, what should I get? Guarantees a post on his Instagram later. Like,
Again, palate preference. Some people enjoy, like I love eating flank steak. You know how successful I've been selling flank steak to restaurants? Not very. So it's not a sexy cut. Most people don't like that, but I have a soft spot for it because that's the first steak I remember my dad grilling for us when I was a kid. So I love eating that cut. But that's not known for being very tender. You can attest to that. You cook that wrong, you might as well eat your shoe. Yeah. But the middles are always the classic center of the plate items. Your ribs, your strips, your tenderloins. But again, how are you cooking it? So to me, I think it's a difficult question for me to answer because I don't know what the application is, right? So you don't want to take a inside round and say, I'm going to cut this into steaks because probably not going to eat the way you want. But if you spice rub it and have somebody that may know how to smoke something like a Noom, he can make you the most killer roast beef ever. So again, cooking application is a big part of determining what item you want to cook and what you want to eat.
So do you Nooms have a go-to for your favorite cut to be cooking, or?
It, like you just said, it depends on how I'm cooking it. So if it's like over the summer and I have my grill out and I'm going outside to cook a piece of meat, I'll get like a ribeye or something like that. But if I'm cooking inside and maybe I know my stove doesn't get as hot as my grill does, it'll be something like a tenderloin or a strip, you know?
Now, am I crazy to suggest something being cooked sous vide as far as a piece of beef goes?
Not at all. We do that a lot at work. I don't do it too much at home with beef just because I can just put it on the stove and be done quicker.
Yeah.
I sous vide a lot of chicken at home. Though,
Is there a piece of beef, though, that you'd throw in the sous vide that somebody would frown upon if that was to be done?
Anybody that doesn't like sous vide?
Yeah, and it also depends on what you're going to do with it afterwards, you know? We sous vide, or we used to sous vide, Wagyu culotte. That was our main steak when we were sous videing it. It was super nice because you drop it in the bath, 60 degrees Celsius for about an hour, take it out, dry it off, grill it up, and then slice it. It was one of the most beautiful pieces of steak you get.
And then you were told it would be how much because the supply is non-existent?
Well, I mean, we're still using those. I'm not sure exactly what we're paying for them. I can't speak to that. But
We can talk about that afterwards.
Yeah.
Maybe I can beat the price.
He'll come in with some sausage.
Hey, he's been in there once, talked to somebody. I don't know how that ever turned out, but he tried. He did try.
No, I went in there and ate.
Well, yeah.
That the next conversation, I just emailed pricing, and email is everybody's favorite way. So there's 3 S's, right? There's counterfeit, and there's commitment and confirmation. When someone tells you, yeah, sure, I'm interested, email me, that's a counterfeit, yes. And to that, I'd rather just be told, no, leave me alone. I will never do business with you because I'd rather just not get my hopes up and move on to the next one.
That's fair.
Well, it's like the guys that run around in expos and they're serial business card giver outers, right? Like they're not even having a conversation with you, but they're
just
like
here, just
really
take
about
my
take my
card.
take my card, take my card, take my card. Like I didn't even talk to you.
Almost as if they have to like go back to the office and prove how many
cards
they gave out.
conversations they had.
I gave out 25 cards today. I'm doing my job.
So Austin, what do you cover as far as region here? How far up and how far down you going?
So I'll speak on behalf of our sales team out of our facility. So we go right now as far north as Mount Kisco and Stamford, Connecticut, as far west as Newark, New Jersey, and then as far east as Montauk and Greenport.
People that have
Can't
to
go
work
much
on,
further east than that.
I was gonna say people that work in Long Island get
You
shafted.
never know. There's maybe a
Gotta get
couple
those
yachts
cruise
out there.
ships, you know, out there.
But yeah, I mean, I've been focusing more on processing in our facility because a mentor of mine told me to evaluate the business and diversify. So don't just focus on selling one item to one type of customer because at the end of the day, it's peaks and valleys in sales. So sometimes it's really busy and other times it's extremely slow. This is obviously not a busy time of year for anybody.
So in that diversification,
I'm sorry, I'm going to jump in here, but speaking of diversifying, we've had some conversations about some new types of protein to add or produce, specifically in the exotics section.
Correct.
Right?
What do you got?
I'm going to meet with that person on Friday at their
I wasn't
facility,
asking for an
but
update.
I'm just letting you know.
It's okay.
Since you love to stick it to me
But-
about that.
Where it comes from, I became aware. Maybe it was from the Joe Rogan podcast.
Oh
'cause
yeah, you were talking
he
about this. You
talks
guys are
about
getting
it.
elk.
He speaks a lot about like elk and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But he
But-
hunts for his.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I understand.
We can arrange that, by
But-
the way.
but
you can
the-
arrange
I'm-
hunting trips?
So the
Not
thought
through
process.
my company, but through a friend of mine.
Let's go.
Yeah.
That's on our leisurely time.
Well, yeah.
But the reason being, or one of the reason beings, is that apparently there's a chemical that's apparent that's in red meat that is not in like the game wild, like elk or what else were we talking about? Axis deer and stuff like that. So like that chemical is, I don't even know if I can say it, but trimethylamine and oxide, or TMAO. But that chemical
Sounds
has been-
delicious.
yeah, it's great. So that's the chemical that they're pinpointing as one of the causes of heart disease. So if you were to switch and consume elk or one of the gamier proteins,
The idea is you're lowering your chances.
you're lowering
of
your chances of heart disease. So you can continue on with a meat diet and not have those risks. And I think that was one of the things that Joe Rogan was speaking about on his
Yeah.
podcast. And I've had a couple of conversations since then, and then I kicked it over to Austin and told me about some elk. And there we are.
Interesting.
Yeah, I haven't eaten elk in a while, but I grew up eating like white-tailed deer is something I've eaten a fair amount of, and that is you want to talk about some gamey flavor profiles. Eat a deer steak like cut from the round or the chuck that for a deer that wasn't processed very quickly, and it was. You want to talk about strong flavor, pronounced. It's never. I will never eat that again. Grind it into sausage. Not to talk about sausage again, but like I would much prefer to eat deer sausage or like ground meat from the carcass than I would eating deer steaks. Other than the backstraps are usually a nice clean flavor, but everything else, grind it up.
But so that clean or unclean flavor comes from how quickly it was processed and how it was processed, and you're saying you lose that flavor when you grind it up and like cover it in seasons and spices and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean seasoning and spices are make most things taste better. But yeah, I mean also think about not everybody has a clean kill.
True.
Right? So if you look at the whole thought process behind, treating animals humanely and from start to finish, from raising them, feeding them, transporting them to slaughter, when they get harvested, the kinder you are to that animal and the better it's treated, the chances of it producing a better tasting meat are proven. I mean, that's look no further than Temple Grandin on that. And, there's a reason why she's sought after as far as advising people on that activity and how they want to slaughter animals. But, at the end of the day, if an animal is terrified, they're gonna produce toxins into the meat, which will then not lend itself to meat that eats as well, and it won't taste as good. So that's. Please don't ask me where I read that, but
I've heard things like that
Yeah,
before
but-
too.
Similar.
I will also say that think of somebody, if a deer is grazing in somebody's backyard and it's a clean kill, that's one thing. A deer that is shot with an arrow and it runs 2 miles, and then falls in a ditch somewhere and then it's just bleeding out, dying, like that animal's probably not going to taste as good.
Right.
So, hunting is a bittersweet thing. I think I'm in support of it if you're going to eat what you kill. But shooting things just to shoot things, I'm not an advocate of that.
Not mad at that. And you were just saying a second ago too, in focusing more on the processing and diversifying. What else besides walking in here to Noom's with sausages and whatnot are you guys able to provide to some of the locations that you work with?
Well, well, I guess what I meant was if a Noom started raising his own cattle and he had a slaughterhouse to slaughter them, and then he needed somebody to cut his steaks for him and package them with his, a Noom brand steaks, like we would offer that service as a facility.
Gotcha. Okay.
So that's what I meant. So
Okay.
It's really my customer would be somebody like a wholesaler that is already going to be selling cut product or dried product to their customer base. And I'm just merely providing a service.
And how often do you see these accounts show up?
They are extremely hard to come by.
Right. Okay.
Yes.
And then from that point,
Do you have any right now?
Yes. But we can talk about that afterwards
That's
because,
fine.
yeah, completely different. But I have another guest for you that I think will be very, very, you'll really enjoy talking to him. So
Cool.
that's somebody that we can talk about afterwards.
Nice. Now, you were saying that you were bringing a Noom Wagyu sausage at some point. But
Wait, I'm sorry. Before you get into that, can we stay on the gamey topic a little bit? Right.
What would you like to talk about?
Well, also gator.
You want alligator?
Yeah.
We
Is that like a big seller for you, alligator?
no?
Yeah.
Nobody asked for alligator.
Except for Justin.
I'm asking for alligator.
Why do you want alligator all of a sudden?
Because I want to cook it and I want to eat it.
You personally want to cook alligator?
Yeah, I really do. Because I've at first I was totally like not into it at all, and
What
I didn't
changed
want
your
to.
mind?
I've read some, and I can't remember the recipes now, but I read some recipes and ways to like smoke them and make the better that it supposedly is very good.
What's his name? Chef Paul Jean, the guy
Yes,
formerly
yeah,
Blue
like,
yeah,
that's what it was. And
Yeah.
I saw that.
he does it.
I saw his page and it like inspired me. Like I gotta work on some gator here.
But you've never even tasted it. You don't know.
I mean, there's a first time for everything, right?
Right.
Like
You ever eaten frog?
No, the gamiest thing I've ever eaten was geese.
Goose? Like Christmas goose?
I had 2 of them, so geese.
Okay, sorry.
Wait, time out. Did you eat the ones that you had? Like the ones living
No,
at
those
your-
I have ducks.
Oh, okay.
Those are ducks.
Just like, man, you're
No, I
getting
didn't
really
eat
into
those.
it.
I didn't eat those. I do eat their eggs. I have they.
Do you
my
plan
ducks,
to eat those
Duck eggs
ducks?
are excellent.
They're awesome.
Do you
They're
plan to
not-
eat those ducks?
if they don't produce eggs? That was the deal. I told my son if they don't produce eggs, whoosh, off, going in the smoker. All
When you do that, let me come by. I'll cook them for you.
right, fair enough.
And
But
frog legs to me were essentially like having little wings.
Yeah,
why did you go
love.
back,
love.
Why
I
did you go
love
back to frogs?
frog
We got
legs.
gator, we got duck, and we're talking
Well,
about
actually, I
excited.
mean, technically, in Jay's defense, moving from gator to frog is much closer than going from elk to gator.
I guess you're right.
But no, so can you get him gator? Where do you get gator from?
I'll have to look into that.
Okay.
The goose I had, by the way, just to clarify, was at a tailgate, and someone was, I don't remember what they were trading. I think it was like cheese or something. They didn't have cheese at the tailgate, and they wanted, can we borrow some cheese? So we said, sure. And then they brought over the goose in exchange. Like, would you like to try some of these geese?
And it was
And
good.
we're like, sure. And they're like, yeah, we shot them this morning. So it was like they just shot the geese and brought it to the tailgate, and it's some feather on it, but it was good.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever eaten
was
any
gamey.
bird
Yeah.
that fresh.
It was gamey for sure. But
That's interesting.
Do y'all
good.
do y'all do any hanging of game birds at Manhattan?
No, we don't hang our ducks to dry them, but we do slightly age them a bit. I'm not sure
Okay.
exactly how long we do, but we do age them before we.
that was actually the
Portion serve
second
them.
time I ate a bird that fresh. The other time was in Armenia. I told you that story.
Yeah.
With the quail.
I love quail.
They come and they take your order, and they're like, what does everybody want to eat? Whatever. And they go through it, and then we had to order quail for the most part because I don't even know what the other animal was. So we went with quail, and then they said, okay, be ready in about an hour. Go enjoy the lake or something like that. So we went down to the lake, and sure enough, in the distance, we heard like some shots going. My dad's like, that's dinner.
They're getting our dinner for
We're
us.
getting our dinner right now.
that's fresh.
Common theme I feel like outside. Like my father's Moroccan, so every
Okay.
time we would go to Morocco, we'd have to count the tablecloths because that's how you knew how many courses you were having because it was a new tablecloth for each course.
That's cool.
And when
That
I was
actually
when I
was
was
really
young,
cool.
it was like 7 tablecloths. It was insane. But a lot of times, like something would come out onto the table, and you look at it and you go, "That looks a little familiar," and you go, "Hey, can somebody translate to me what this is?" And one time it was pigeon, and I was like,
I like pigeon a lot.
so I couldn't wrap my head around it being like a 16-year-old kid also though, and I was like, "No, we're good. We have those walking all over Manhattan. I don't need to taste that whatsoever." It's
But that should
weird.
make you want to taste it even more. You're like, I'm so familiar with these.
I was a 16-year-old kid. I grew up on like hot dogs and burgers at that point.
I
right?
would never think to eat a pigeon.
Oh, it's
We
amazing.
have
Really?
a new
Yeah.
squab dish on the menu. It's quite fucking delicious.
And it's so red.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
the flesh is
it's
so
beautiful.
red.
It's really nice. I can show you a picture real quick. It's so we have a squab en croûte. So it's a squab breast lined with black truffle, wrapped in duck sausage, wrapped in Swiss chard, wrapped in a crepe, wrapped in puff pastry, and the whole thing gets baked and then sliced for you.
Wrapped in gator.
Can you send us that picture and we can put it up
Yeah,
on the
that-
Instagram later?
Yeah.
Is it Central Park Squab?
No, I don't know where we get it from.
Local.
So
Oh,
nice.
fuck yeah. Pardon my language.
Yeah.
That looks amazing.
Oh, wow.
Dude, it's so good.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Yeah, that
When you
looks
guys see what he's
incredible.
talking about when you look up the Instagram at Waiting on Fries.
And again, that is why you get what you pay for.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, and you go to your restaurant, you're not getting a $5 sandwich, but you're
You can get an
getting
$18 burger.
You're getting and it's delicious, by the way. You're getting an incredible piece of meat.
Experience.
So I remember when I first when I was meeting with you at Manhattan, and I forget the young lady who was the bartender, but she was talking about the biggest task that everybody was given opening up was, can we have food that matches the view?
Yep.
And y'all are definitely doing that.
Working on it.
What? How much does that go for?
The squab, it's part of the 3-course. I'm not sure what it costs to get it a la carte, but it's part of the 3-course, so you get it for $98.
In 3 courses.
Yeah.
Remember when I
Free
was like,
tablecloths.
Yeah, remember I was like, I can't come here. It's above my pay grade, and you just 3 courses, 98.
Yeah. It's not that bad.
For something that looks like that, absolutely not.
And you're still getting 2 other courses on either side of that. And there's no tipping. So, I mean, if you don't buy anything to drink, you're in for $98 and that's it.
Yeah, all right.
But what is dinner without a beverage?
There you go. Exactly.
It isn't life.
Let's be
Nice
honest.
glass of water.
Speaking of
Tap,
a
please.
beverage with your dinner,
Yes.
I recently learned we went out to a dinner that was hosted by Beam Suntory and Cow Steaks, and it was at Boucherie in the city. And I did not know this previously, but having a nice cut of meat with a overproofed whiskey is the way to go. It really opens up the meat.
Interesting.
Is something that you've come across before or no?
I might be. I don't know. Like I like bourbon a lot. I don't typically drink it when I'm eating. That's more of my nightcap. My whole family's gotten into the wee whiskeys because my brother-in-law's whole family's from Scotland, so they introduced us to you must have a wee whiskey after dinner, and so now we've all taken to that like fish to water, and so we all do indulge, but I don't typically drink it when I eat, but I would enjoy that. I don't see why I wouldn't. There's one of my friends. He runs Mason Dixon Distillery in Pennsylvania, in Gettysburg actually, and one of the things that he'll experiment with is doing what's called a fat wash. So you'll actually use fat like lard and mix it in with your drink, and you wouldn't think that, kind of like what you're saying, you wouldn't think that it would lend itself to that, but it's incredible because you still pick up on all these different nuances with the flavor, but the bite is totally removed as a result of that fat. So it's I found that to be pretty interesting because I thought I wasn't going to enjoy it, but I actually enjoyed it quite a bit.
I was going to say washes are something that is happening heavily right now in drink world, and you'll take that fat and throw it into the jar with the whiskey. You'll freeze it so that way it's easier to separate later on. But you're seeing all these kinds of washes, whether it be like butter, bacon fat,
Duds,
or grease.
your guy
right?
Duds talks about doing fat washes with bacon fat quite often. I don't know if he has ever done them for the restaurant, but I know he does them for himself.
Now, what if you did a dry aged beef tallow and did that?
That could be very good.
That would be strong.
Yeah.
On a drink?
Yeah, that might go horribly wrong though. Don't try that at home.
Yeah.
Jay will probably try.
Yeah, can we experiment here? I did see someone go as crazy as to do like a popcorn butter wash somewhere,
I can see that being tasty.
which seems quite interesting. Yeah, exactly. All these different flavor notes and whatnot. It's like we're just so damn bored with all the spirits that are out right now. Where it's
You gotta
like,
do something
hey, let's just start mixing it and washing it through all these other various channels, right?
Do you guys sell like rendered Wagyu fat? Can you buy that from you?
I can just sell you fat. What would be more cost effective, Anum, is if you bought your Wagyu from me and then you can save all that fat.
Well, no. So we do that. We do that. I've been had. I was just wondering, does somebody come to you asking you for like rendered fat?
No, I mean we don't cook.
Well,
in the
no, I know.
house. But yeah, we would be able to supply you with that. Like it would be for, again, going into business mode here for USDA. Like we would have to be labeled as trimming for cooking use only.
I see.
So, and then as long as you're cooking with it, then it's good to go.
Yeah. I mean, we don't need to buy that. We render our own fat and go through quarts and quarts and quarts of it. But I'm just curious.
No, I'm saying I could just sell you the fat.
Sell us the fat. Yeah, but
And
I
then you
mean,
can
like
do
we're
whatever you
trimming
want.
our own steaks and
Yeah.
using that.
As I said, be happy to offer them to you.
Oh yeah, I know.
Austin, New York Prime Beef.
Yes.
Nationally, anybody can contact you and essentially
Yes.
get an account going.
So they can order our designed packages online, but if there's something custom that they want that is not online, then all they have to do is call.
Sure, but they're not
So
getting
it's-
a wholesale price or something if they just get it.
No,
online, right?
it's a retail price.
Yeah.
So any of our wholesale business is done out of our facility, and it's dried and cut in the same place as all the products for New York Prime, but it's a different, same product, different service.
Okay, say there's a guy out there with a restaurant listening right now, and he said, "I want to get my hands on some of this." Can he just open up an account with you?
Yeah, that's extremely easy for us.
Is there anybody you're not going to service?
As long as the money is green and they like beef, we're happy to do business.
All right.
So we'll get your information down in the show notes there. You can click to the side there and find Austin. Plugs?
Wait, I got one more question. Are you guys getting into the sustainable meat industry? Are you guys like?
Ooh, that's a shot.
No, I'm just curious.
No,
like,
I mean
what do
a
you guys?
shot for the drinking games. The
Oh.
J,
the J drinking game.
drinking
Yeah, but no. How do you guys feel about that? What are you thinking about it? Are you thinking about it? Is it just not a concern for you?
No, we will look. Our rule of thumb is that we're going to source whatever our customers want. So we can source any product as long as it has a home to go to. But I will say there are times when people request certain items that meet certain criteria, and when they see the price, they have sticker shock, and then they immediately say, "I'll take that commodity product, please."
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, like, you know, we pride ourselves on customer service. That's really what we want to focus on, and whatever our customers want, we want them to be happy with the products that they get from us.
Cool.
Could you give them your email so they can send you pop? That was Keys typing, by the way.
If it's for New York Prime Beef, you'll go through our website,
Okay, gotcha.
which we can put. You know, you're more than welcome to put our link and our number
Yep.
on there, which I can.
I'll put that all down in the show notes for everybody to click through.
Thank you for coming out.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. This was an unexpected surprise.
Thanks, Austin.
No, thank you all. Appreciate it.
My stomach is growling now. I'm starving.
Also, guys, don't forget to smash that like and subscribe button because, you know, algorithms.
Interested in seeing what else Austin has to offer over at New York Prime Beef, the best steaks on the planet? Head over to NewYorkPrimeBeef.com.